Welcome to the Tools for Motherhood activity series. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a pre-reading activity that's going to be focusing on an author series. So we're going to be taking a look at one author that writes several books. With that, we'll be focusing on not only the books and the fun of reading to our children, but also using different words and reinforcing those to build their vocabulary. Let's get started. I would like to share with you an example of how to bring a book alive for your young child as we look at a series of books by the same author. I'm going to call this one an author study, and the author we're going to be taking a look at is a gentleman by the name of Leo Lionni. But first of all, let me give you just a little bit of his background. Leo Lionni was born in Amsterdam in 1910, and he grew up in a very close-knit family that enjoyed the fine arts. In his childhood bedroom, he had various containers holding live snails, caterpillars, fish, frogs, and mice, and many of these little creatures became the main characters in Leo's stories. Leo's first stories began when he was on his way to visit his young grandchildren. He tore out a couple pictures from a magazine and he told a story using those pictures. He continued to write stories that focused on seeing beauty in everyday life. When I originally did my book study on Leo Lionni, he had 37 titles in all. And one of my favorites, my personal favorites, was one called Frederick the Field Mouse. Let's go ahead and focus on that particular story as we bring a book alive. All right, what we're going to be focusing on is not only cognitive development or showing an awareness of time, concepts, and sequences, but we're also going to be looking at language development. Actively, we're going to have our child participating in the conversation as we're reading the book. Help them enjoy and understand appreciation of reading and the funness about all of the reading and pictures and the dreaming of what the little character is doing, and also to understand the purpose of writing. When we learn to write, when we learn to write our letters and our name, that's all the beginning parts of writing stories and books. So some of the materials that you can use for this particular activity of bringing it alive, not only the little book, Frederick, that you can get at your library, but you can also get a quilt or a blanket. You can use the kitchen table, or you can gather some pillows and snacks, maybe even a family game to play as you role play what Frederick did with his little family. You can get a flashlight if it's dark under the table and you want a little bit of light to be able to read the storybook. How about typing paper to write on and some markers? I use the fat tip markers. They're a little bit easier for young hands to be able to push on a piece of paper. And again, plain white typing paper with no lines on it so that they can just be more creative and those lines don't define space for them, but they have the freedom to just create. All right, now let's bring the book alive. In the story, Frederick is a little field mouse who will share, using words during the cold winter months, memories and dreams that will help to cheer up his little friends. Each person in this story has different gifts and talents to share with the group. Frederick's happens to share his gift, and his gift is using words, showing that everyone's contribution is important. So Frederick's is words and storytelling. All right, so how we can bring this book alive, we can cover the kitchen table with a sheet or a large quilt or blanket so that the table is completely covered and it touches the ground all the way around. And then go ahead and pull back one of the corners so that the flaps, you can create a door and perhaps either safety pin it or wrap it around one of the legs of the kitchen table. Go into this little mouse house, so to say, under your table and talk about what you would need to last for a long winter if you were a little mouse family. Perhaps pillows would have to be gathered from the beds. What games could be played together as a family under the kitchen table there? Try playing one that you like. Perhaps having your lunch and sharing that, or even just a snack under the table. Have your child hand out plates for each person that's under the table. Maybe you have a few little teddy bears under there as well. Have your child practice placing the food on each plate evenly So each person gets one item, and each person may have a napkin. Drinks with lids would be suggested in case of spills, or even little juice boxes with straws. Perhaps a special story time could be shared in there as well. And like I said, flashlights would be helpful to light the pages. All right, take a picture of your activity to remember this special day. And to conclude, you can create maybe either the next day, or if you've got time that day, chances are their attention span may be short, so you may want to do this for the next day. So to conclude, you can create your own storybook of your adventure. You can talk about what happened first when you went under the table and have your child draw pictures of that. You can discuss what happened in the middle of this story, so to say, that you're creating, and then at the end. Discuss what to write at the bottom of each page of the story. So, for example, your child has illustrated maybe 8 or 10 pictures, and then from that, they can tell you what is going on in that part of the picture, and you can write that at the bottom for the story. And staple the top corner so it looks like a book. If you have any type of leftover wallpaper, those serve as great book covers. And then be sure and title it, put the name of the authors, and be sure and date it as well. I cherish the books that my son made, and the little pictures that he drew. They're absolutely precious, especially when they're grown up adults now, and you can still cherish those little pictures that they made. All right, so in conclusion, as your child is able to share a conversation with you as you're discussing about the little mouse and what he might need to survive the winter, ask him questions. Share back what you hear the child saying. In other words, you're using active listening skills. They're talking, you're asking questions, they're responding, you're responding back with what you're hearing them say. Just wonderful dialogue as you're building problem solving and thinking about all aspects of the story. Is your child able then to tell the events of your adventure in order during the story? For example, now that you've got 6 or 8 pictures that he's made or she's made, have them decide what order they're going to go in, and number at the bottom the page that would be now in your storybook. So as you create this little book together, the child understands the purpose of writing. Through fun role-playing under the kitchen table, your child is able to develop a love for reading. Thanks so much for joining today. If you would like more ideas, check out our toolsformotherhood.com website. Happy learning!